Hi there, when we are continuing the track, Typhoon Noul still tracking off here towards the north today, actually just towards the southeast of Taiwan. And at least at this time, this storm is starting to weaken. That's really the good news out of this, but it has left some damage behind down here towards the south in the Philippines. Now bringing some much needed rainfall there in the Taiwan. And the latter part of this update, we're going to be talking about the impact out here for those of you into Okinawa, because of course this storm system is headed in your direction. And also you can see here on the map, well, of course, our other tropical system, that is Dolphin, which is likely going to be impacting Guam by the end of the work week. So let's talk about our storm system right now. Typhoon Noul here, still tracking off here towards the north. Really looks like scrambled eggs on the satellite picture. The center of circulation definitely is still there. It is pretty defined. We are still looking at winds gusting upwards of about 200 kilometers, or more like 180 kilometers per hour in the center of circulation. Winds gusting upwards about 80, gusting to 115 knots at this time. Moving north-northeast at 20 kilometers per hour. Pressure's up to 950 HPA. That is up from 915 HPA. You remember, that was basically the lowest this got to there on early Sunday morning when the storm system really peaked out. And you can see here, this was actually here on Sunday evening, 07:20 UTC. Just a monster of a storm system at this time. So it is a night and day comparison between what we are seeing now in just 24 hours to what it was then before this moved just along the coastline. Some interaction with the mountains here that did disrupt it, but the bigger issue that we are seeing is this high amount of vertical wind shear off here towards the north, and that is really resulting in that strong interaction with the jet stream that's causing our storm system to weaken. But let's talk about the impact this storm did have out here in the Philippines, because we actually did see 2 reported deaths there in Apari, both due to electrocution, people trying to basically secure their tin roofs in the height of this storm system. Santa Ana was really where the storm really hit the hardest. That's where this video is coming out of. Videographer James Reynolds took it. Please check out his YouTube channel, Earth Uncut TV. Just some incredible video of this storm there, but also he has a whole stockpile of storm footage from previous storms out here. So yeah, I do recommend going there and checking it out, because yeah, it shows you just the intensity of this storm system. We did see hundreds of evacuations in other areas of the Philippines as well. Thousands of people were stranded, numerous power outages, but at least at this time conditions are quickly improving. It's more like a summer-like day out here. We have much clearer skies wrapping in behind this storm system, and the worst of it is now getting sheared towards the northeast. And that is why, if you are there in Okinawa, it is coming in your direction. Actually, typhoon warnings have been issued out there. I know T-Core 2 for the U.S. military bases here in Okinawa. Remember, there are nearly 100,000 people here in Okinawa. It's actually pretty amazing if you go there. It's like a little America that are under their separate warnings from JMA, and they basically are saying in 24 hours, guys, you're going to be seeing some winds about 50 knots or greater sustained. And actually, that's what JMA is indicating with this red line here. That's saying, according to their warning, there is a 70% chance or higher that you're going to be seeing sustained winds of 50 knots or more within that red circle. And that basically encompasses all of the southern Japanese islands. Now, it is expected to pass directly over Okinawa here on Tuesday early morning. I realize I spelt that wrong just now, but yeah, expected to pass just in the early morning hours there on Tuesday. At this time, typhoon warnings are in place across all the islands down here towards the south, and you're really going to be looking at these max winds in some of these areas upwards of about 50 meters per second, or gust around 180 kilometers per hour. That's actually the latest warning from the Japan Meteorological Agency. This is just a translation from their website. If you check JMA, by the way, you might just find their track on the English page, but if you check the Japanese side, they do put out a full public statement. And this is just some of the highlights from that. Wind gusts up to 180 kilometers per hour, or 98 knots. Flooding rains, even the threat of landslides, especially over towards Miyako. Some of the steeper areas in Okinawa. I know it's not a lot of hills out here, definitely not really mountains, but we still do see some flooding, even landslides that possible out here. In open waters, we could see waves up to 7 to 8 meters high. And this is another big thing. We get those outer rain bands. They come on shore, and there is that threat of tornadoes. We do see that from time to time, especially in these rain bands. You got some cooler air wrapping in behind this storm system off towards the north. And actually, let's go ahead and just show you this really fast here, because you have these temperatures swirling over Japan, but we have that cooler air wrapping in. We have basically this kind of a cold front setting up here coming in from the Korean Peninsula down towards the south. That's going to create some instability. So some of these areas, I would not be surprised if you do see a report of a tornado, which is why JMA is putting that on the table, saying it is possible. And plus, tropical systems, they do have the tendency to spawn tornadic activity, so it's not something completely unheard of. I've been talking about the last several days as well. If this track was to tend to lean a little bit farther towards the east, it would put you here in the southern Japanese islands on the left side of the storm system, but that doesn't look like the case. This front's going to pick it up just right off towards the north, where it's going to be moving basically right just towards the west of Okinawa. This, as far as tropical systems go, and I know this is really a weakening storm system. It's going to be a pretty messy one, but if this was a full-fledged typhoon, this would be the worst-case scenario, because you're right in what we always talk about, the right front quadrant. So this is going to be where the highest winds are. If you are thinking this is an early season storm, I'm just going to ignore this one. Think again. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised here on Tuesday morning. The winds are going to be picking up. A lot of stuff's going to be tossed about. Any light items. I've been saying this day in and day out. Light items going to get tossed about. And notice how I also switch basically how I talk about this storm system from when I was talking about there into the Philippines. Because in the Philippines, what we have to worry about out here is thatched housing, tin roofs. As I mentioned, there was 2 casualties. Both were due to people securing their tin roofs in the height of the typhoon. In Japan, you think about a little bit of a different picture out here. The big issue is light debris flying around, people just not being smart. Because if you notice in Japan, life doesn't really slow down even for typhoons. People are so used to it out here on some of these islands. But they're built for these typhoons. Just stay indoors, secure everything, and yeah, don't get caught out in this. This is actually showing you right around 7 a.m. Japan Standard Time. Max of this storm system pushing over your head. We have that right front quadrant. Some of these areas with those winds gusting up to 180 kilometers per hour could be impacting those of you out here. I think conditions will deteriorate really fast too. It's going to be windy in the overnight hours, but as we head into the morning, the conditions are going to go downhill fast. I know that the military has their T-Core system, and they don't really put in the T-Core 1 until the winds really start kicking up. Some of you might be surprised, so try not to get caught out in that. Look at the rainfall. It does look like some of these islands are also going to be hit, but even farther towards the north, much of mainland Japan is going to be feeling the impacts from these showers out here. And yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at as we look ahead. Actually, let's go ahead through the rest of Tuesday and the Wednesday. You have that whole low pushing overhead. It's looking back towards the north. It's actually centered over northeastern China, but it extends all the way down across Japan. So even into Tokyo, over through Osaka, Kyoto, you're looking at the threat of flooding. And all that moisture is surging in from the south out ahead of this as well. Not just Noul, but also the front. So I think some areas around Shikoku, over through the Kii Peninsula, really could see that threat of flooding and landslides. Not so much due to this storm, but it's a combination of a few things. And it's going to be a very wet one out here, and I would not be surprised if some of these areas do get some damage from this storm system because of the rain solely here in western Japan. Maybe some winds, but it's going to be a big rainmaker out of this one, and that is going to cause some problems. On the plus side, if you like summer, this low is, as I mentioned, it's some instability. We got the cooler air, but it also is surging in all that warm air from the tropics. Tokyo, temperatures getting into the 90s, 30s Celsius as we go ahead into Thursday and Friday. Plus, conditions will clear up pretty fast after our low pushes off there towards the northeast. Basically, what we're going to be looking at is much fairer weather as we head into Thursday and Friday and then into the weekend. So good news there. We have to get through the storm system first. All right, guys. That's going to be all for me today. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please post them down there in the comment box below. always appreciate your feedback. Always say that over and over again. Please follow us on our Facebook page, Western Pacific Weather, also at Twitter at Westpac Weather. You can follow me at Twitter at Robert Speta. And as always, please stay safe out there.